Welcome to Insights. I'm Adam Rivers.
And I'm Sarah Collins. In this episode, we'll reflect carefully on the Quran verse by verse, focusing on wording, context, and coherence.
Yeah, and if you are joining us as a curious learner, this show is really designed to be a journey into the profound layers of the revelation.
Exactly. You know, in our last episode, we explored the ultimate challenge posed to humanity, which was to produce a single chapter like the Revelation. And we really felt the weight of that stern warning regarding a fire fueled by people and stones.
Right, it was a very heavy reflection.
It was incredibly heavy and, deliberately so. But imagine for a moment holding your breath underwater for so long that your lungs begin to burn. Your entire nervous system just goes into this state of severe alarm.
Yeah, full panic mode.
Right, and then in a fraction of a second, you break the surface. You pull in massive amounts of clean, cool oxygen. The panic instantly dissolves into absolute relief.
It's an overwhelming shift.
Exactly. What does that whiplash actually do to the human mind? That biological pivot from constriction to expansion is exactly what we're looking at today.
That's just the perfect way to frame it. Because today's focus, which is verse 25 of Surah Al-Baqarah, it arrives as a highly precise psychological and cognitive balance to that previous heavy warning.
It operates entirely on that mechanism of profound relief, doesn't it?
It really does. It paints a comprehensive picture of the ultimate reward for those who choose a path of awareness and positive action. Let me just read the English translation of the verse.
Go ahead.
And give good tidings to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that they will have gardens beneath which rivers flow. Whenever they are provided with the provision of fruit therefrom, they will say, this is what we were provided with before, and it is given to them in likeness, and they will have therein purified spouses, and they will abide therein eternally.
It's just such a vivid promise.
It is. So my opening question to you, and to everyone listening, is this. After such an intense warning, how does this vivid promise of reward completely shift the listener's psychological state?
Well, the wording constructs that shift by immediately changing the listener's physiological posture. Like when you hear a stern warning about a fire fueled by stones, your chest tightens.
Right. You physically brace yourself.
Exactly. It's a hardwired human reaction to an existential threat. You feel a sense of constriction, a heightened state of alert, but the revelation doesn't leave you in that state of paralysis.
No, it pivots immediately.
Right, to this incredibly lush, vibrant imagery. It rewires the internal state by directly addressing both the intellect and the physical body simultaneously.
And it does this by establishing a deep value system, one that connects human movement on Earth today directly to the hereafter. It all starts with the imperative command right at the beginning of the verse.
And give good tidings.
Exactly. When we analyze the ancient Arabic linguistic root of this specific word for glad tidings, which is Bishara, we find something remarkable. The root is intrinsically linked to the word for skin or complexion.
Skin.
Yeah, specifically the outermost layer of human skin. So the semantic origin implies that this isn't just a casual passing along of happy news.
Wait, so the Qur'an is literally connecting an internal psychological promise to an external physiological reaction on your face.
It absolutely is. The linguistic precision here is staggering. Think about the neurobiology of receiving the greatest news of your entire life. You don't just process that information intellectually.
Like in a vacuum.
Right, exactly. Your autonomic nervous system responds. Your capillaries dilate, blood flow to your skin increases, your facial muscles relax and lift.
Your actual complexion changes color.
Yes, your eyes physically light up. True glad tidings literally overflow onto human features. The divine promise is entirely rejecting the notion of a cold, abstract, theological idea that you just hold quietly in your brain.
Wow, that completely upends how we usually think about ancient scripture. We tend to separate the spiritual from the biological, treating faith as something that just floats in the ether of the mind.
We do, but it's a false separation.
Yeah, because you're saying the revelation is using a word that acknowledges our somatic reality, the fact that human beings process hope and trauma in their actual tissues.
Precisely. It is designed as a vital kinetic energy. It is meant to sweep away earthly fatigue. Think of the dust and exhaustion that accumulates on a person's face after a long, difficult struggle in this world.
Right, just the daily grind.
These glad tidings arrive to physically wipe that fatigue away. The warning we discussed previously cautions the mind and constricts the chest to prevent destructive behavior, but these glad tidings are the necessary counterweight.
They open up massive horizons of hope.
Exactly, broadening the scope of the soul. The biological change in your complexion is the outward manifestation of a spirit that is suddenly equipped with the optimism required to embrace life.
So we have this profound, joy-inducing promise that changes your literal biology. But, that instantly raises the question of access.
How so?
Well, who exactly are these glad tidings for? Because human history is full of exclusive clubs. Is this reward just for anyone who claims affiliation with a specific group?
That's a very common assumption.
Right, or someone who mechanically repeats a set of words they inherited from their parents without ever actually feeling them.
That brings us straight to the core of divine justice. To answer that, we have to ask, what do we actually mean when we use the word faith?
Okay.
The revelation answers this with decisive clarity, linking these physical glad tidings to two inseparable conditions. Those who believe and do righteous deeds.
A phrase repeated quite often.
Hundreds of times throughout the Qur'an, it forms the absolute foundation of his value system. To believe, or have Iman in this specific linguistic context, is to achieve a state of profound internal stability.
Internal stability.
Yeah, it is a deep, mental, and heartfelt conviction that generates psychological security.
That definition of faith as internal stability is so different from the modern secular interpretation of faith, which is often framed as, like, believing in something despite a lack of evidence.
Like a blind leap in the dark.
Exactly, almost like a blind leap.
A blind leap in the dark is the exact opposite of the Quranic definition. The revelation frames faith as a state of vigilant awareness and profound mental conviction.
Because you're actually anchoring yourself.
Right. You achieve this stability because you realize your connection to the Creator and you finally understand your exact purpose in existence.
Yeah.
It cures the existential vertigo of not knowing why you are here.
So it's definitely not blind submission.
No. And it is entirely opposed to empty social inheritance, where you just adopt the religious labels of your family without active conscious affirmation.
I think we all know people who claim to possess that internal stability, though. They meditate, they adopt a label, they say they feel incredibly peaceful inside.
But then what do?
Exactly. They do absolutely nothing to alleviate the suffering of the people around them. Their belief stays completely locked inside their own minds, serving only their own comfort. How does the revelation view that kind of isolated internal peace?
Well, in this framework, isolated internal peace is insufficient. That is exactly why the verse introduces the second non-negotiable condition immediately after faith, and do righteous deeds.
Right.
Let's unpack the linguistic root of the Arabic word for righteous, which is salihat. The root of this word is the direct contradiction and opposite of corruption, or fasad.
Oh, that's really interesting.
To do a righteous deed means to reform, to return things to their proper healthy place, and to actively build life on earth.
But isn't the historical baggage of the word righteous just tied to individual rituals? Like when most people hear righteous deeds, they picture someone praying silently in a room, fasting, or adhering to a strict personal moral code.
They do?
They don't picture a civil engineer or a medical researcher.
And that is a massive misconception that limits the scope of the revelation. Righteous deeds go far beyond individual rituals. Don't get me wrong, individual rituals are essential.
Of course.
But they are positioned merely as spiritual refueling stations. We don't live at the gas station, right? You go there to get the energy needed to drive the car.
Right, the journey is outside.
The actual arena of righteous deeds is the vast expanse of human life itself. Every single scientific discovery that eases human suffering is a righteous deed. Every effort a person makes to clean up a polluted river is a righteous deed.
So it completely shatters the artificial wall we build between the sacred and the secular. A word of truth spoken against a corrupt political system is just as much a righteous deed as a prayer.
Exactly. Any effort to alleviate poverty, any defense of the vulnerable, these are all fundamental righteous deeds because they oppose corruption and restore balance.
They put things back in their proper place.
Yes. The Qur'an entirely rejects the fabricated dichotomy between religion and the world, claiming to have profound internal faith, while simultaneously being corrupt, unjust, or even just negatively withdrawn from the struggles of society, has zero value.
It really comes back to that conjunction in the phrase, believe and do righteous deeds.
Faith is your internal compass. Righteous deeds are the tangible fruit of that compass in the real world. They are organically intertwined.
So When you combine that pure, anchored belief with high-quality, reforming action, what is the exact nature of the reward they step into? The verse uses very specific environmental imagery here, talking about gardens.
To feel the impact of this imagery, you have to place yourself in the shoes of the initial audience living in the harshest desert environment of the Arabian Peninsula.
Scorching sun, barren landscape, blinding light.
And a constant, exhaustive battle against the elements. Now, the word used for gardens here is Jannat. If we trace the ancient Arabic root of this word, Jan, we find that it implies covering, concealing, and hiding.
Wait, so Jannat literally translates to something that conceals. That seems like an odd root for a garden. What else shares that linguistic root?
It is a fascinating root. It is the exact same root used for the word for a fetus, because the fetus is covered and concealed within the womb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the root for the word jinn, representing entities that are hidden from human sight. It is even the root for a warrior's shield, because the shield covers and protects the fighter in the heat of battle.
That is an incredibly diverse set of words. A fetus, an unseen entity, a piece of armor, and a garden. But the connecting thread is brilliant.
It's all about absolute envelopment and protection from outside forces.
So how does that specific root of concealment apply to the visual concept of paradise?
Well, paradise is described as Jannat because it is not just a flat patch of grass. It is a magnificent, overwhelming garden where the branches of the trees intertwine so deeply and the foliage is so thick that they completely cover, conceal, and shade what is beneath them.
Like an impenetrable, lush canopy.
Yes, and this perfectly satisfies a very deep longing in human psychology. No matter how much we build modern cities of glass and steel, humans have an innate biological craving for green nature.
We need the cooling relief of shade and absolute protection from harsh external elements.
Exactly.
The canopy provides a sense of enclosure. It's the ultimate psychological safe room. It answers the human need for security. But the verse immediately adds a dynamic layer to that secure environment. Why does the Revelation specifically mention rivers flowing beneath them?
Why not just say there are lakes nearby?
Right? Or beautiful oceans on the horizon?
Because there is a profound difference between stagnant moisture and flowing water. Stagnant water, like a pond or a lake, I mean, it might look pretty initially, but over time it can breed stagnation, algae, and decay.
It just loses its vitality.
Flowing water brings continuous vitality, renewal, energy, and absolute cleanliness. Furthermore, the acoustic element is crucial.
Oh, the sound of the water.
The sound of moving water provides an unmatched psychological calmness. It's nature's ultimate white noise, lowering the human stress response.
And the detail about flowing beneath them, I always found that wording specific. Doesn't flowing water underneath imply erosion or some kind of structural instability if we think in earthly terms?
In an earthly context, perhaps, but here it signifies total integration. Flowing beneath means the water permeates the roots of the massive trees, ensuring eternal lushness.
Right. Feeding the ecosystem.
It means rivers flowing beneath the very pathways and palaces they inhabit. It proves that the ultimate reward is not a state of dead stillness.
It is not some boring, static painting where you just sit on a cloud for eternity.
No, it is a dynamic, pulsating ecosystem.
That touches on a very real human flaw. We naturally tend to get bored of monotony. You could put a human being in a billionaire's mansion overlooking the most beautiful coastline in the world, and within 6 months, their brain would tune out the view.
It just becomes the background wallpaper of their life.
Exactly. The human mind's natural tendency to habituate to its environment is a massive philosophical hurdle when designing paradise.
But the Revelation anticipates this cognitive trait. By introducing flowing rivers and a dynamic ecosystem, it portrays a highly interactive environment that cures the mind's tendency toward boredom.
It presents a majestic scene that is constantly shifting in every single moment.
Moving continuously like those clear river waters.
Which brings us perfectly to the cognitive experience of the people living inside this environment. The Revelation mentions them being provided with fruit, but their reaction to the food is what I find most fascinating.
It is a brilliant detail.
The verse says, whenever they are provided with a provision of fruit therefrom, they will say, this is what we were provided with before. Why would their first reaction to the food of paradise be a sense of déjà vu?
This is where we reach what we can truly call a philosophical miracle in the Quran's wording. When these beautiful fruits are presented to them, they say, this is what we were provided with before. There are two distinct, highly logical layers of meaning here.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first meaning addresses their transition from earthly life to the hereafter. The fruits they are handed closely resemble the fruits of our worldly life in their shape, their color, or their name.
So they recognize them immediately.
Yes. A person might look at it and say, ah, this looks exactly like a pomegranate I used to eat. Or, this is shaped just like an apple.
Hold on, so the revelation is saying that the familiar shape is actually a deliberate psychological buffer, but the essence of the fruit is entirely new.
Exactly. It operates on the psychology of familiar molds. Think about how the human brain processes entirely new experiences.
It can be overwhelming.
If you were suddenly transported to a completely alien dimension where nothing looked recognizable, if the geometry was impossible, the colors were outside our spectrum, and nothing had a recognizable name.
Your immediate physiological reaction would be severe alienation, aversion, and panic. The human mind requires existing mental schemas to feel safe.
So out of profound mercy, the Creator doesn't subject the human mind to alien shock. The outer appearance is designed to be familiar so that your immediate reaction is comfort and safety.
But if it's just an apple, where is the ultimate reward?
That's the genius of the design. Once the familiar shape has provided that immediate psychological comfort, you take a bite. And at that moment, the soul is surprised with a transcendent, unimaginable taste and an explosion of pleasure that has absolutely no earthly equivalent.
Oh, wow. So the familiar outer shell was just a Trojan horse for a completely novel, transcendent experience.
That is exactly it.
That is a brilliant way to ease the limited human mind into infinite, unimaginable bliss. But you mentioned there was a second, even deeper layer of meaning to the phrase, this is what we were provided with before. How does that apply once they've been there for a while?
The second meaning applies to their continuous experience inside paradise itself.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you are in these gardens and you eat a magnificent piece of fruit. A little while later, you are presented with another fruit. You look at it and it looks identical to the one you just ate. The color, the texture, the shape are perfectly matched. Naturally, you say, this is what we were provided with before.
You anticipate the exact same flavor you enjoyed earlier.
Yes, you do.
Right. And this brings us straight back to the psychological concept of the hedonic treadmill. In our earthly reality, the second bite of chocolate is never as thrilling as the first bite.
The 10th bite is mundane.
Exactly. If you eat your favorite meal every single day for a year, it eventually becomes repulsive. The pleasure constantly degrades. How does a place of eternal reward solve the mathematical problem of dopamine depletion?
The revelation solves the problem of eternity through the continuous renewal of the essence. The verse explicitly says, and it is given to them in likeness.
So it looks the same.
Yes. So when they take a bite of that second identical-looking fruit, they discover an entirely new flavor and a profound, novel pleasure that was completely absent in the first one.
So the aesthetic remains similar, which triggers fond memories and happy anticipation, but the essence is infinitely novel.
Exactly. It creates an infinite upward chain of joy without any exact matching that would cause the brain to habituate.
Because if eternity consisted of a single, unchanging pattern of pleasure, it would eventually become torture.
The continuous renewal of the essence, while maintaining a beloved aesthetic resemblance, ensures that the peak of happiness remains kindled forever. You get the comfort of the familiar without ever suffering the rot of boredom.
So we have the ultimate security with the shaded canopies, we have dynamic, vital energy with the flowing rivers, and we have continuous, infinite cognitive joy with the ever-renewing fruits.
It's a comprehensive sensory and cognitive environment.
But humans have a deeper vulnerability. You can have all the luxury, perfect weather, and infinite culinary joy in the universe, but without someone to share it with, it's just a beautifully decorated, solitary confinement.
Very true.
Humans desperately need connection. The revelation mentions purified spouses. What makes the specific choice of the word spouses so critical here?
The choice of the Arabic word zar, translated here as spouses, is incredibly precise. It doesn't just use a generic word for companions, friends, or people.
What does it mean linguistically?
In this linguistic context, Azwaj is the exact counterpart that completes the other to form a perfect functioning unit. Think of a pair of shoes, or the two wheels on a bicycle.
The identity, function, and performance of one are fundamentally incomplete and absurd without the presence of the other.
Exactly.
That analogy clarifies so much. One shoe isn't just lonely, it's practically useless.
Precisely. The revelation recognizes that no amount of material bliss can ever fill the lonely void inside a human being. The human design requires a counterpart in which the soul finds perfect peace and reflection.
Without that counterpart, the identity remains incomplete.
This specific promise cures the deepest emotional and social need for true connection.
In our human context, though, romantic relationships and marriages are notoriously messy. We carry so much psychological baggage into them. We bring our traumas, our insecurities, our petty jealousies.
It's the reality of earthly relationships.
So when the verse describes them as purified spouses, does that just mean physical perfection, or is it addressing that heavy emotional messiness?
It absolutely addresses the emotional reality first and foremost. The word purified in the original Arabic is used in the intensive passive participle form.
Why does that signify?
This grammatical form indicates extreme perfection and exaggeration in purity. It's not a superficial cleanse. It encompasses three distinct, profound levels of purification. The first is psychological and spiritual purity.
Which means what exactly in the context of a marriage?
It means a relationship where all the dark roots of the human ego, selfishness, jealousy, the urge to control the other, the petty resentments, are completely extracted from the heart. These are the exact psychological ailments that corrode earthly marriages over time. Think about the invisible ledger of wrongs that partners keep in their heads. The hurtful words spoken in anger, the fatal doubts, the slow accumulation of past grievances.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
In this environment, the spouses are completely purified from all that heavy, destructive psychological baggage.
To experience a relationship with absolutely zero ego, where you aren't constantly managing the other person's insecurities or defending your own, that alone is a definition of paradise. What are the other two levels of purity?
The second level is mental purity. This translates to an environment with no futile arguments, no painful misunderstandings born of poor communication, and no exhausting disagreement.
Just clarity.
It represents absolute transparency and perfect bandwidth between two minds. It is soul-level communication where both partners are perfectly harmonized. And the third level is physical purity, completely free from the earthly biological inconveniences, frailties, and decay that accompany the human body here.
It's important to note how this fundamentally elevates the concept of partnership. It utterly rejects those narrow, inherited cultural traditions that might view a partner in the hereafter merely as an object or a tool for physical pleasure.
Completely rejects them.
It's describing a completely equal, reciprocal relationship of mutual spiritual ascent and shared tranquility.
That equality is central to the concept of Azwaj. You cannot have a completing pair if one is subjugated to the other. They must be perfectly matched to form the unit.
All of this, the physiology of hope, the dynamic environment, the renewing fruits, the flawless, ego-free connection, it sounds absolutely perfect. But in our earthly reality, perfection has a fatal flaw.
It always comes with a ticking clock.
Yes. The better a moment is in this world, the more anxiety we feel about losing it. How does the revelation address the paralyzing anxiety of the end?
You've identified the greatest tragedy of the human condition. No matter how much luxury, love, health, or power a person attains in this world, the specter of the end is always haunting them.
The inevitability of passing away sours every single earthly joy. We experience anticipatory grief even in our happiest moments.
We do. Every massive palace eventually turns to ruin, peak health inevitably fades into old age, and every joyful gathering of loved ones ultimately ends in separation or death.
It's the existential dread that philosophers have written about for centuries. Worldly happiness is inherently incomplete because it is temporary.
You couldn't actually enjoy the rivers or the purified spouses if you had a lingering thought in the back of your mind that in 10 or even 10,000 years, it would all disappear.
Exactly. The human mind would eventually fixate on the impending loss, ruining the present bliss.
That is precisely why the Revelation places the crown on this entire verse with the final phrase, and they will abide therein eternally. The word eternally completely uproots this existential anxiety from its very foundation. The linguistic root implies absolute stability and permanent settlement.
So it's not just a very long duration, it's the complete removal of the concept of an ending.
Absolute psychological security means there is no threat of expulsion, no slow degradation of the environment, no aging of the body, and absolutely no death.
That changes everything.
This absolute permanence is what makes any worldly sacrifice required to achieve it completely negligible. The deep human ambition for eternity, our desire to build monuments that outlast us, our desperate attempts to prolong youth, wasn't created in vain.
It was placed within us as a compass to drive us toward this ultimate, permanent reality.
Exactly.
If we take all of this and reconstruct the entire scene, We have a detailed vision of the hereafter that cures human anxiety, boredom, loneliness, and mortality. But how does visualizing this exact, perfect reality practically change the way we live our lives on a random Tuesday morning? Because it's easy to just use this as escapism.
And that is exactly what the revelation prevents through its miraculous engineering of motivation. It refuses to let this be mere escapism. It uses the vocabulary of our current physical reality, gardens, rivers, fruits, spouses, to generate a massive somatic energy of hope.
But then it forcefully directs that energy toward positive building right here on Earth. The Quran does not want passive creatures who sit around with their hands folded, hating the world, just waiting to die so they can go to paradise.
Because it tied the entire promise back to the beginning of the verse.
Mhm.
Those who believe and do righteous deeds.
Right, the inseparable conditions.
Precisely. By linking the ultimate reward inextricably to righteous deeds, it is calling on you to make your worldly life a miniature prototype of that promised perfection. It's an active blueprint.
If you deeply aspire to gardens beneath which rivers flow in the hereafter, you must be a planter of trees, an environmental steward, and a preserver of rivers today.
It demands that you cultivate the virtues of the destination while you are still on the journey.
Yes. If you want to enjoy purified spouses there, you cannot be toxic here. You must actively strive right now to purify your earthly relationships from malice, deceit, and selfishness.
If you hope for renewable, brilliant fruits, you must be creative, masterful, and innovative in your earthly work today, adding the fruits of your effort to society.
It proves that divine justice is absolute.
It practically invites us to build a truly good life in this world as the necessary logical prelude to eternal grace.
Thank you for that detailed and logical explanation. The way these concepts interlock completely transforms how we view the wording.
It's been a profound reflection.
It really has. To bring all this together for you listening, faith and action are organically, inextricably intertwined. The ultimate reward is not a static painting. It is dynamic, vibrant, and perfectly tailored to human psychology. Familiar forms contain transcendent, ever-renewing experiences to cure our natural tendency toward boredom.
Exactly.
Relationships are elevated to an equal, utterly purified partnership devoid of ego and trauma. And the absolute guarantee of eternity completely uproots the shadow of human anxiety. So I want to leave you with this to ponder. If our ultimate destination is designed to perfectly fulfill our deepest longings for security, connection, and continuous renewal, how much of that perfection are you actively trying to cultivate in your corner of the world today?
That's a great question.
That's it for this episode of Insights. If you found this reflection helpful, follow the show and join us next time as we continue verse by verse in the Quran. Until then, take one idea from this verse into your day.